He's going to be filming this so that we can get it online, so that if you know you want to go back and look at it again or get details, you certainly can do that. So we'll get information about that. But we're very happy today. We have Will Walker with us, who is the Deputy Director of CMS, who came today. And then we have Kurt Howard, who's a Senior Administrator with CMS, who's been doing this work for over 28 years. And he's going to be taking you through the steps. And then we have Pete, and who is actually in the trenches and displaying in a facility where you can go and look at some of this furniture. So we welcome you. We thank you for being here today. And Kurt, let me hand it over to you.
Very good. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Help me thank Senator and Representative for putting this all together today. My name is Kurt Howard. As introduced, I am the administrator of the state and federal surplus property programs down in Springfield. We actually work statewide and across the nation to acquire equipment and bring that back to Illinois and its eligible communities. A little bit about me to help kind of fill in some blanks. I do have about 29 years of service with the state of Illinois. I'm actually a township official, former township official for about 28 years, auxiliary deputy sheriff, and actual past president of a nonprofit association. So I'm telling you this to help you understand that I know what you're up against in terms of trying to acquire the equipment and find the resources that you need for your program. And I think you're going to find today's information very helpful. So let's talk about the Federal Surplus Property Program. Why is there a federal program? Well, it exists under Title 40 of the U.S. Code. 1949 authorized military agencies and federal agencies to donate surplus property to the states, and who we in turn transfer that off to organizations such as yourselves. Nonprofits, public agencies, cities, counties, towns, so police, fire departments, libraries are eligible for this program. The nonprofit organizations, of course, if you're a health or human service organization, maybe a food bank, a shelter, maybe you provide services to seniors or something of that nature. So we even have law enforcement in the program, and museums are another eligible entity. And we can't forget about Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the American Red Cross. And something new, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is VFWs and American Legions have now recently been allowed to acquire federal surplus property thanks to a law that was just signed and the act was just actually signed in August of this year. So lots of great information. There's one of me, all 50 states, U.S. territories. So we work as the liaisons to the federal government, Department of Defense and GSA, and we work as one voice through a national association. Long name, acronym NASAS, National Association of State Agencies for Surplus Property. And this is actually a very helpful website to you as well, because you'll find a lot of good information and resource material about the Federal Surplus Property Program. And of course, Illinois is there, but also other states across the nation, and you can read about success stories that have happened here in Illinois and elsewhere across the nation, and find out a lot of good, useful information that may help you navigate the property system. So nasas.org is a great resource. On that site, to find more information, if you want to, say you walk out the door, miss my business card today, you can go to nasas.org, click on Illinois, and it'll pop up my name and information, email, phone number, fax, everything you need to reach back out to me if you have more questions after today's program. So federal surplus property is basically all the property no longer needed by the federal government. That includes not only the military agencies, but also the federal agencies, such as GSA, Social Security Administration, FEMA, and those types. They're obsolete items, they're excess to the federal government's need, used to life expectancy, or that they have to be replaced for economic or safety reasons. And typically that is why this property begins to flow through its processes and become available to you. We are, again, SAS, State Agencies for Surplus Property. We are regulated by the U.S. General Services Administration. They actually promulgate all the rules and regulations for this program, so they get to decide who's going to be in this program. They get to decide what property is actually allocated to Illinois. They get to decide what we do with the property after we receive it. So we have all types of terms and conditions for the program as far as the state of Illinois goes. So SASP, our mission for the public good, to donate surplus property to eligible organizations in a fair and equitable manner. When we do the allocation process, it comes, the GSA says, Illinois, you can have these items. We're actually competing with every other state in the nation for the similar type of property. And as we go through this process today, I'm going to show you a website where you can search for property right from your home, your office, 24/7. You get up in the middle of the night, log in and see what's out there in the federal world. It's property that will be located here in Illinois and will be across the nation as well. And we'll talk about how some of the transportation processes work in our program. Let's start off with the eligible organizations. We're talking about, again, any tax-supported public agency, so cities, towns, townships, counties, those types of organizations are eligible, and that includes all of those with police, fire, emergency services. We do see a lot of those in our program. Public Works Department, so that's going to be everything from, streets and roads. Do we have any local governments in here today? Out of curiosity? No? Okay. Out of curiosity, how many of you are nonprofit organizations? Fantastic. Well, good. This is great because this information I think is really going to be helpful to you. And the good news is that even though I'm based out of Springfield, and we do have a warehouse down there, about 40,000 square feet of federal property, the good news is you don't have to come to Springfield. I have a liaison up here, Pete Stockview, who was introduced earlier. He's going to be probably the best friend you've ever had in the whole world in terms of contact. And he's here to help you too. So as we go through this, we'll give you some tips and tricks about how to look for property and identify equipment that can help you keep your overhead low, which may help you provide more services or retain or retrain staff. So that's going to be the goal for today. This is a good example of the type of property. Now, realizing that you're a nonprofit, this maybe has more of a target of interest to local government, but it gives you a good feel. Because we're not just talking about everything in this room, tables, desks, and chairs. We're talking about big ticket items such as vehicles. And this is property that comes out of the federal government to the state of Illinois. And in some cases, it comes to us in Springfield. In some cases, we go out across the nation and bring it back to Illinois. And in some cases, you can acquire it and have it shipped directly to your organization. So in this example up here, if you're talking about vehicles and you're looking at something that comes out of the military. So up here, I know this is kind of hard to see. Oops. Oh, right up in there, there's actually a military green truck. And I'm sorry that the sun's just a little too bright for us in here. But if you can see that, this is what can become of the property. This is a 1986 Chevy Blazer. Well, that's kind of old. But that Chevy Blazer had 30,000 miles on it. It's a 4x4. And it was actually in perfect running condition, but it was military green. So a local government, the city of Rochester, down in Sangamon County, police chief came in, he acquired that item for $750. Now, that pricing information is representative of what we call a service charge. The service charge represents our shipping and handling and administrative operations. And here's the deal. We're not funded by the state of Illinois in terms of our program's operation. We're not funded by the federal government in terms of this operation. So how we exist, and we're not here to make a profit, but how we exist is service charges for items such as this. And typically our service charges for equipment will run anywhere from 5, 10, maybe 15% of original acquisition value, and that's the cost paid by the federal government. So when you are looking at items like this, keep in mind there'll be this service charge, shipping, handling, administrative fees to cover our resources so we can keep this program alive and bring it to you. But other than that, we're not trying to make a profit. So know that what we're doing is break even, and we want to help you get this property. So we'll negotiate with you on pricing based on the condition of equipment. So we'll have a lot of flexibility to help you out and help you meet your goals for your organization. So you see it can be refurbished. This chief took that white Chevy Blazer, got some fresh paint from the local community college, very resourceful, turned around and put this back into service. It actually helped pull his squads out of the ditch during the winter. We all know how Illinois winters are. Same with this piece up in the right-hand corner. This is actually an Oshkosh truck, a huge monster truck, if you will, from, I believe that Oshkosh is out of Wisconsin. And this is our State Department of Transportation who acquired this item. And this piece of equipment is probably about $150,000 new to the federal government. But our State Department of Transportation acquired it for about $20,000. And even though you can't see it, what they did was repaint it with their orange. And the size of this truck, they were able to use it to pull their own road trucks out of ditches when they were plowing during the winter months. So down at the bottom of this page, there's a fire truck, there's a boat, there's an ATV, there's an end loader here, and let me play just a quick audio file on the a testimony that we got from a school district here up in Chicago. Well, let's see if we can make this stick. Good.
We could stand here and hold it.
Stand up. All right, let me make sure my speakers are on. Make sure it's plugged in. Hope this doesn't blow your ears out.
The availability of leftover federal surplus property is a little-known secret that needs to be shared, says Sandy Ellis, who has headed several school districts all over the state. She says the schools she's overseen have benefited greatly from the items the state of Illinois gets from the feds, such as computers, desks, cafeteria equipment, and backup generators.
If it were not for this program, there is not any way that any one of my districts could have ever afforded to purchase the magnitude of the products that we did for our classrooms, for our faculty and staff. And this is literally pennies on the dollar for what we would have to purchase if we were to buy these things.
The federal surplus property program is available to many groups, including police and fire departments, homeless shelters, schools, and senior centers. For more information, visit cms.il.gov.
Okay, so you heard a testimony from a school district. Let me share with you a testimonial from a law enforcement agency down in Southern Illinois.
Communities in Illinois are putting old government property to good use thanks to the state's federal surplus property program. The state has access to property no longer needed by the federal government, ranging from laptops to vehicles and cafeteria equipment. Local police departments, schools, and other groups can get these items virtually free. Murfreesboro Police Chief Jeffrey Bach says the program has literally been a lifesaver.
One item that I have is an all-terrain vehicle. We used it on the search of an Alzheimer's patient who had walked away a very cold night, and it really helped us get around and actually find him in the wooded area.
Surplus officials say they're constantly looking out for the needs of communities, whether it be getting an abandoned tractor from a military base overseas or a helicopter for local use. They're especially excited about the opportunity to acquire surplus property from NASA in the near future.
And in fact, we did begin that program for our museums here in Illinois. The Adler Planetarium, not too far down the road from you, they've acquired a lot of NASA property, and I believe they've got one of the shuttle engines. They were actually in the bid to acquire one of the space shuttles, the 4 space shuttles that went out. So, you know, that's the value of this program. But this is why I'm glad you're here today, because look at the statistic up here that I've noted. That says that 40% of this program's participants are local governments. Nonprofit organizations are exactly the type of organizations that I have hoped to target as it relates to the federal surplus property program, because you demonstrate the greatest need. Yes, our local governments are always looking, ways to keep taxes low and subsidize their equipment, but you're the organizations out there touching, hands and faces to help those neediest in the state of Illinois. So I'm glad you guys came here today, and it's actually overwhelming that nonprofit organizations are the majority of the group today. So I'm very pleased to have you here. So let's talk about how many of you are a 501c is recognized by IRS? Big percentage of it. So that's one of the key criteria. It's not the only criteria, but that's one of the key criteria for the federal surplus property program. So you already have a leg up in terms of eligibility. Not all organizations are eligible. As you can see right here, 501s typically represent nonprofits that may do something with food. Maybe it's shelter for homeless, maybe it's a food bank, maybe it's you're providing food to seniors, or other soup kitchens and homeless shelters, halfway houses. So there are a lot of those types. Do we have any of those groups in the room? Nice. So, Just let me find out about some of you how many of you provide food services to organizations? Very good. Do you have your own kitchens?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Is food service equipment something that would be of great interest to you?
Yes.
Fantastic. Because that's what this program, and even right here in this representative picture. I can tell you right now, I've got the Indiana Jones warehouse down in Springfield full of restaurant equipment. So we're talking about fryers, refrigerators, freezers, that type of stoves, everything that will help you serve some of our neediest in our community. So that's great. Let's talk about a couple others. Anybody here represent any kind of senior organizations? Very good. So what are your challenges in your organizations? Is it typically maybe transportation equipment? So vehicles, maybe the vans or those types of, okay, good deal, because those are available in the program. You need something. Actually, I have, oddly enough, I have two. Will, I don't know if you know this or not, but DHS declined those two. They're an airport style van. Do you know what I'm talking about? Transport van. Is that something that you're looking for? We have two of those down there right now. DHS declined them. I don't know why, if they decided to get new but yeah, I just found out about that. So there's something right off the bat that would be eligible. And I can get you pictures, because I have it in Springfield. I can get you information about the equipment. And that's how this program works. You'll be talking with myself, Pete, or one of my other members of my staff, either in Springfield or up here at the Des Plaines organization. Pete is, let me tell you, we have a very small operation in Des Plaines. So Pete has an enormous task of not only representing the program, but he has a dual role of helping with state surplus property as well. But he's got to be out there looking for property. So when you go to Des Plaines, even though he's open 5 days a week, his operation, you almost have to call him for an appointment, because he's out there, he's looking at the federal surplus program, he might be downtown acquiring federal property. So when it comes to Pete, and his contact information is here and on here as well, he can, yes?
Is Pete's information, so I didn't see it out
Yes,
there.
actually I'll have it up here. In fact, I got Pete's phone number.
Good, okay,
And Pete
great.
will tell you many ways how to get a hold of him too. So, like I said, he's going to become your new best friend in this neck of the woods. But that's great. I mean, that's what this program's about. So knowing that, even serving our seniors, it's another, as we all are growing older, this is going to become a bigger component in terms of providing health and just various facilities for our seniors and ways to get them around to the various appointments that they need to be to. So that's good to know. It's amazing that I've got this, this group of nonprofits that represent so many different facets of our neediest in the community. So definitely, if you are if you're providing services to seniors, you are absolutely eligible for this program. Talked a little bit about the seniors and the homeless. These are the types of nonprofit educational and public health entities that are eligible. So it could be a medical institution, literally hospitals belong to this program, health centers. We have clinics, drug abuse treatment centers, schools, colleges, universities, big part of the program. Schools for mentally and physically disabled, child care centers, even radio and TV stations, such as the NPR type organization. Museums and libraries. We have Orland Park Library District has been another successful applicant in the program. They've gotten also a lot of the NASA property. So if you ever are traveling through there, the Orland Park Library is a great place to see some NASA property. And then of course our veterans. Just a minute about child care centers. Does anybody in here represent child care centers? You do? Is your center on its own, or is it through a church or a different, on your own? Okay, good deal. Are you licensed by DCFS, that type?
Yeah, we're accredited. I mean, it's through the agency. It's one of our sites.
We just had a lot of, believe it or not, we had probably 2 rooms full of daycare furniture come available. And in fact, a church down in Sangamon County acquired it because they actually have a daycare. And it's, the miniature furniture and stuff like that. What's a need for your program? Is it that type of furniture or food service equipment?
Well, both.
A little bit of both.
Because we have a commercial kitchen where we do training. We have an everyday kitchen as well, which could be upped with some of that commercial, the Wolf and the Viking stoves that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely interested in that.
Yep, very good, very good. Okay, again, that type of property is absolutely can be found in this program, and we have a lot of it in Springfield right now. Did everybody get the newsletter that was out there on the table? If you did, good, because this gives you a wonderful example of the variety of property that you can see. I mean, everything literally from fire trucks to boats to in here. I think we got something on food service, Hobart kitchen equipment. you know, literally that's how it comes into us, literally in bulk quantities. And this newsletter will be a great resource for you. There's also some other websites on the front page. Of course, CMS is out there, and you can learn about what CMS does. But there's some military, there's some sales sites, and even the state's own IBID, where we sell state surplus property at public auctions. So a lot of good information, but some great examples of how and what types of property that migrate through our program. Let me talk to you just a moment about, do we have any VFWs or American Legion? Does anybody know anybody with a VFW or American Legion? Yeah. So, and I know the representative's office and the senator's office. Well, here's some good news for you about that. The nonprofit organizations that serve our veterans, that would be American Legions, it could be AMVETs, it could be VFWs. There's actually about 33 organizations that are eligible now to acquire federal surplus property. And this is something, you know, for the service provided by our veterans. This was Congress's way of saying thank you for your services. As minimal as that is, what it did was open up the opportunity for those types of organizations that are providing services to the vets and just a resource center for veterans, such as the VFWs do. As of 2010, they became eligible for this program, but it was only limited. Congress did a great thing in doing this, but they did it so fast. They rushed it through in literally 3 months' time. They didn't give a lot of thought to how the program worked. And in 2010, when Congress and the President signed this act, what it did was say, VFWs, American Legions, you can have furniture, you know, everything in this room for training purposes. You can have that kind of office equipment for your needs. You can get computers for your needs. But what they couldn't get was maybe a truck and a plow to plow that front entrance to get the snow out of the way. They could not get food service equipment. We all know VFWs and American Legions have their fish fries and their annual events. So it was limited. We, the states, through our NASASC, recently went back to Congress and said, wonderful thing, but not far enough. Can we go farther? Can we get them the tools that they need for the repair and maintenance of their buildings or the mowers? Can we get them food service equipment? Can we get them trucks and vehicles to help them move around? Can we get them medical equipment if they need it? You know, the walkers or the portable carts that you can use for mobility. So they did. They moved this through this past session, and the President signed it on August 9th of 2013. It went into effect, and now, within the next 30 days, hopefully the state of Illinois, we'll be working with our state Veterans Agency, and of course members of the Senate and the House, so that they're aware that VFWs and American Legions, and they're in all of our communities, can now participate in this program as a way of saying thank you for their service. So, I don't think we have any small businesses, but I want to share this with you because you may know somebody that may be, you know, maybe a minority or disadvantaged in some way in terms of starting a new business. The U.S. Small Business Administration has, through a memorandum of agreement with the U.S. General Services Administration, created a program called AA. AA, through the U.S. SBA, means that when you enroll with them, you have access to, as a small business, the various federal contracts. So whatever, if you're in construction, you're in retail, you're in some type of a service organization, maybe a trade of some type, you're actually eligible for this program now, the Federal Surplus Property Program. It's sort of a spin-off benefit of becoming an AA small business. And I'm sharing this with you because you may know somebody in your community, maybe that's struggling or thinking about starting a small business or a service of some type. It could be as simple as somebody that has a lawn mowing service. You know, we all know friends, maybe even family members that are in different types of maintenance or construction businesses or something like that. Mention this to them. Tell them the SBA has a program out there. Yeah, you can get on federal contracts and things like that, but it also gives you access to millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment that comes out of the federal government. So there is a very specific website. You go to www.sba.gov, and that's where they can actually do an online application and enroll, get certified with SBA, and then the only thing you have to do after that is send us the letter that SBA gives to the organization saying you are now SBAA certified, and oh, by the way, as an offshoot, you get federal surplus property to help keep your equipment lines low. So it's another great way to target, because let's face it, if our small businesses survive, maybe that means if they can keep their overhead low by acquiring this property or this equipment, That means they're going to maybe retain workers or hopefully maybe hire some new workers because they can keep their equipment budget low and utilize this program. So just wanted to mention that to you. I realize there's nobody in here, but it's just, you know, another food for thought. Yes?
I actually do work for economic development organization who works with small businesses.
Very good.
So any small business would be
It would be the very first thing they will want to do, and I would say yes, but there is qualifying criteria. So when it's a small business, typically they're looking at minority organizations, maybe that are startups, or some sort of maybe disadvantaged or underserved area. And there's very specific criteria, but if you make that eligibility and you complete the online application and get access, then this is one of the spin-off effects is you get access to this special equipment program. So, good question. All right, this is the website, sba.gov, and I know it's hard to see, but literally there is an application process that begins right down in here, and that's where they can go and find this information. So they can Google sba.gov, Google 8A, and then that will get them to this particular web page, and they can begin their eligibility process with SBA and hopefully get enrolled. And not only do they get those contract opportunities, but you get the availability of this federal surplus program as well. Let's talk about just some success stories. In the SBA realm, again, I realize more nonprofits, but this was a great success story because this was a very small business, female-owned business up here in Tinley Park. Anybody from Tinley Park? Gary? No? Loretta Moulter, she has a construction business, and she has been able to certify herself as an 8A, and when you're in that program, it's not a lifetime program, but you do have 9 years of eligibility, so which means you can get access to the federal contracts, and there's a lot of contracts that happen up here in the Chicago area as well, and even Loretta has gone out of state to do some of the work. But the best news is she acquired a piece of equipment that came back from the war zone in Iraq, and it was a Bobcat, and it's this unit up here, and I wish these could see this better, but let me tell you about it. This is a Bobcat 5600. May not mean much to you, but I can tell you when it came into my shop, yes, it had, you could tell it was in a war zone. It had blown out windows, the tires were, you know, flat. It had some issues related to some of the operations. So we sent it to the local Bobcat company, and we spent about $3,000 getting it repaired. And because we can do that in our program, that's one of the benefits is we try where we can. We'll refurbish a little bit to make it more usable to you. So this was a $29,000 device that did multiple things. It had an excavator on the back, a bucket, just did all kinds of operations. The federal government paid $29,862 for it. Well, we put in some windows, we got the tires back up, and we did the hydraulics repaired. And what we did is this, our service charge on this particular item was $7,500. That may seem like a lot, but in the scheme of the Bobcat world and that type of equipment, if you're a construction company, she was thrilled to death because, number one, she had a wonderful piece of equipment that was being reutilized by the taxpayers. You and I help pay for this equipment, and that's one of the reasons that, you know, we have value in this program because we get 100% of the reutilization of everything that you acquire through this program. So you can take pride in knowing that, yes, I help pay for this, and guess what? Going back into service in my nonprofit organization. And that's the wonderful message about this program. One more, Maywood Courthouse here in Cook County, organization called Chicago Architectural Metals. This was one of my first SBAs in the program. Way back, what, Pete, 2001? Yeah. Somewhere around there, when CAM, Chicago Arch, came in, and they were bidding on federal contracts, and they got the contract, $1 million contract to rehab this courthouse. And visually, you can't see it, but there are a lot of metal fabrications in this building and windows and such, and that was their business. That's what they did, was metal fabrication. So he was able to use this program, and he got vehicles, construction equipment, machine shop equipment, which was critical. I believe we had like a $250,000 metalworking machine that he acquired through our program. But his message about this was, and I'll read it here. In 2008, CAM was able to offer more than 50 jobs based on a number of larger contracts that were awarded. Contracts that would not have been obtained without the help of equipment acquired through the CMS Federal Surplus Program. That's the huge win here, is that he used this program to keep his equipment overhead low. And That meant that he was able to retain more workers and hire more workers for his construction projects. So again, that's the value of SBA and the 8A organization. So what CMS has been doing? Well, we've been very busy. Will's given me a lot of flexibility to do some amazing things over the years. And in this case, in 2008, I had the ability to go to Kuwait. And why I was there was to represent not only the state of Illinois, but the states across the nation to negotiate a transportation contract with base commanders, bringing back that war zone equipment. And believe it or not, there were Bobcats, there was food service equipment, there was backhoes and bulldozers, and everything they needed for the military. And it hadn't been done before. Maybe some of you remember some old footage where after the Vietnam War, there was a big deal about pushing helicopters off into the sea. It was actually footage out there at the time, and some of you might remember seeing that in the news at the time. That's what the whole purpose of me going over there was, to stop that. Don't give it away as foreign aid. Sometimes they have to do that. Don't sell it at foreign military sales. Bring it back to the taxpayers who paid for it. Let us put it back into service, and we did that. The Pentagon got involved. U.S. General Services got involved. And back in 2010, we were the first state in the nation to bring back about $300,000 worth of equipment from the war zone, and we put it back into service through the Federal Surplus Program. I can tell you to date, more than $5 million worth of equipment has come back to Illinois from the war zone. Also in Afghanistan now, we're starting to see that property flowing. So that's a great success story, and it's great for you as a taxpayer. But the benefit of it is some of this equipment was new and unused. So especially things like food service equipment, even some of the heavier equipment had limited hours. But maybe your organization needs a generator, to keep, how many of you need something like that to keep your operations running? I know you're going, yeah. Yes, and they're available through this program. And that's the benefit, get this property back, put it back into service. That's what we're about, reutilizing this property and giving it to the neediest in our communities across the state of Illinois. So, I mentioned the GSA, DOD, we all collaborated together bringing this property back. Though you can't see much of it, there's a little ATV there. This is a Humvee cargo truck. These are generator light sets down here, and that was just another photograph of a number of items. And what's significant about this is not only was this property that was put back into service, but to show you how this program benefits our communities, Chief of Police back in right around 2010, between 2010 and 11, up in Milan, Illinois, Quad Cities area. He called me and said, we got a major flood coming our way. It's coming out and down through, it's going to go along the Mississippi River. I need to prepare for this. He knew, he had the foresight to plan. And what he did was say, I need an ATV to get on the levee because my squad cars won't do it. I need to be able to patrol the levees, watch for these issues. I need light sets, I need tents, I need this, this, and this, and this. He planned, he prepared, he worked the program, and he succeeded. So, one of our success stories is about utilizing this equipment back in the state of Illinois. And in this clip, you're going to hear from the Pentagon.
The state is taking advantage of old equipment no longer needed for the war in Iraq. That lead for the two stories that follow. The first comes in 3, 2, 1. Illinois' Federal Surplus Property Program is receiving more than $300,000 worth of equipment used in the Iraqi war. That includes everything from boom mowers to Bobcats. Colonel Scott Fletcher with the Pentagon says the items will be available to organizations and communities across the state that can put them to good use.
And the beauty of this program is it's not just large equipment, it's small things like tool sets. It's all equipment that the taxpayer paid for. It's still in great condition and can be brought back and utilized for great endeavors.
Nearly 2,000 organizations in Illinois have benefited from equipment donated by the federal government to Illinois through the surplus program since early 2009, saving taxpayers millions of dollars. At the state capitol, I'm Kim Howard for the Illinois Information Service.
Okay. So
second story, same lead, comes in 3, 2, 1. The federal government and U.S. Army are donating more than $300,000 worth of equipment from the Iraqi.
All right. So, as you can see, that's a great success story for the taxpayers and for our communities. And once again, I realize that, you know, everyone in this room, you're nonprofit organizations, and usually we also have a mixture of maybe schools and police agencies and so forth. So keep in mind, you know, think about this, because where we all come from, we always have, of course we have law enforcement. You know somebody mentioned this program. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, does anybody work with those organizations? Mention the program. Daycares, mention the program to them. But mostly, you're here so that you can take advantage of this equipment program and utilize and put back into service this federal surplus property that's been paid for. And what a great success story that I'm hoping to get from you one day about how your nonprofit organization took this federal property, put it back into service to help our organizations. So let me show you how this whole process, this property, where does it come from? Well, it's generated, of course, by the federal agencies, the military side, all the armed services, and of course our federal agencies, FBI, Social Security, those types of organizations. So what happens is the federal government has a reutilization practice. They want each agency, if they've got something available, to reutilize it, so they work an internal process. If nobody takes it, then it becomes eligible to a couple special programs. One is law enforcement and another is the firefighters. They both have priority over this program we're talking about today. I'm hopeful one day that we'll have a voice loud enough to get us up to that level where we can compete with the firefighters and the police agencies for this equipment. But until that day happens, we'll be the next step down. But the good news is there's always plenty of property moving through this system, and it's millions of dollars, literally a week, that is flowing through these organizations, and you'll be able to see it too from our website. And I would encourage you to, if you have the chance to come to Springfield, maybe it's to visit the senator or the representative, but if you do, I hope you'll come by and look at our warehouse there, because even just walking through it will give you a lot of great ideas on the types of property that might be useful to you, because we literally have everything down there. So when it's bypassed by the cops and the firefighters, we see it, and that's one of the things that Pete does and my group down in Springfield. We look on this website and we try to find property, and we go out and we bring it back to Illinois. It might be property located in California at a military base at Barstow. It might be property located out in Norfolk, Virginia. We go there. We go down to Florida, Texas, wherever the major military bases are, because that's the majority of the volume of this property. That's where we go. And you guys actually would have access. Once you become enrolled in this program, say maybe, Pete, how far is it to Fort McCoy from here?
4 hours.
All right, so, you know, otherwise your next closest military base would maybe the Quad Cities, but there's not much over there anymore because they've been kind of scaled back. So maybe the next place is Columbus or Texarkana, and that's a lot further. If you ever have the desire to go visit a military base, we can get you access to it where you can go physically look at this property before it's acquired. And we have a lot of organizations that do that, but we have more organizations that look at it through the internet, or they look at it through our office. Because now, you know, with technology, we can get photographs from the military base, we can get equipment information, so how many hours does it have, or what year is it, that type of equipment, so that you're making an informed decision. That's what we do. We look at it, we try to find out as much as we can about it before we go get it. And then if we believe it has reutilization potential, we'll get it and bring it back to Illinois. So we're searching out there, but you can do that too. You can look all across the nation, and there is equipment available through federal agencies like right here in Chicago, especially, you know, equipment like furniture or maybe computers, or, you know, FEMA sometimes has a lot of excess property that comes out after natural disasters. So there's a lot of property floating around out there, and it's accessible here in Illinois, but also across the nation. So when we get it and see it, we want it, we put it into service, great. If we bypass it, then there's another step that pushes it over to public auction. And then there's websites like government liquidations. They hold the military contract for things that are bypassed, you know, by the cops, the firefighters. And by the way, we are the donation program in this cycle. Now, donation is a misnomer because it's donated to the state, but again, since we're not funded by state or federal government, that's where our service charges to pay guys like Pete to go out and bring this property back and do the functions and the administrative work associated with the regulations of this program. So, but you have an opportunity to go out there as a member of the public and bid on this, just like any other taxpayer would too, at government liquidations or gov deals or some of these major federal online bidding services. So that's kind of the flow. It's actually about a 45-day cycle. Cops, firefighters, then our program, the federal surplus/donation program, and then ultimately it goes on out to public auction if it's bypassed. We try to get as much as we can, and we hope you do too. Am I going the wrong way? Yes. All right. There is some, and I want you to listen carefully to this because it's very, very important. The program has terms and conditions. And what I mean by that is there's restrictions on the utilization of this property. And why it's important to tell you this is because this is considered federal financial assistance to your organization. If you got a $50,000 oven or kitchen set or whatever, or maybe it was a vehicle, or maybe it was, clothing or whatever it was, a generator, coming through this program, the federal government has specific requirements and they want you to be accountable for the property that they have transferred to you. So what do I mean by that? Well, the property that you get through this program, you need to put it into service within the first 12 months. Maybe you get a generator, it needs needs batteries, an alternator or something like that to get it going again. You have time to do that. So you have to put it into service within the first 12 months. And then after that, for any property value, original acquisition cost paid by the federal government, anything under $5,000, you have to utilize the property for a period of 12 months. After that, you can do whatever you want. We hope you'll keep it. Keep using it until it's no longer useful to you. Once you meet our restriction period of 12 months for items that were originally priced at below $5,000 and paid for by the feds, then after 12 months you can dispose of it. That means you can trade it in. You can do whatever you want with it. Property valued over $5,000, and this would be your larger items like vehicles or different types of maybe computer systems or food service equipment, whatever it is, has a restriction period of 18 months. After 18 months, and again this is items over $5,000, you can do whatever you want. So my message to you is, do not, during the restriction period, either sell, trade, lease, lend, bail, or otherwise encumber this property, because it actually, one of my responsibilities is, back to the GSA, I have to check on the property. So how I do that? Well, Pete can show up at your door and say, hey, I'm here to do a compliance review on making sure you still have your equipment. We've done that before, but we generally do it by survey. We'll send it out usually within 6 to 12 months of acquiring the property. You tell us, yep, I got it, put it into service, blah, 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 send it back to us, you're good to go. After that restriction period expires, do whatever you want. Trade it, whatever. It's federal financial assistance to you and your organization. Do not try to convert this to personal use. Unfortunately, I've had public officials, elected officials, and township government that have gotten things like backhoes and bulldozers. Yeah, they got it for the township, but oh, they took it out to the farm, and maybe they plowed down something or mowed down something, got them in trouble. And people can go to jail. So that's my warning to you about it. Don't be afraid to get something, but just know that it's federal financial assistance. Use it for its intended purpose, put it into service, meet the restriction period, and then do whatever you can to maximize the value. If that means selling it on eBay, sell it on eBay. If it means trading in to get something better, do that too. You need to do whatever you can do to recover any value from this property and the program, because it's yours. It's federal financial assistance after you meet these criteria. So again, don't be scared by that, but it's just my caution to you. Good people can sometimes get themselves in bad situations, and I don't want to see that happen to you. So I always give everybody a heads up about the requirements of the program. So how do we get it? Well, first you can come to Springfield, visit the warehouse. We are there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. We can also give you access to being able to go out to a military base nearby. So if you did want to go up to Fort McCoy and just to experience the opportunity and see what's on the military base, they'll tell you this is available to you, but this is not right now. So remember those different property programs, the police and firefighters? Well, they have their own screening on site too. They get their priority access, but after it's been sitting there for a period of 21 days, it migrates on over, or 14 days, it migrates on down to our visibility, where you, as an organization, can acquire. So we can get you that access. You can go in and you can pick up property, and I'll give you some more information about that shortly. So we're going to show you on our website where to go to and how to screen for this. And if we have time before the end of the day, we'll go on the internet and I'll show you the real-time site so you can kind of experience it yourself. So know that you can come to Springfield. Know that you can, of course, visit Pete by calling ahead. Remember Pete's number I told you? Here it is, 847-294-4188. Or email me and I'll put you in contact. My business card's out there. If you don't have a pen to write this down, see us afterwards and we'll make sure you got Pete's contact information. Because again, he is out on the road. He's a very small operation and he will be in the office a majority of the time, but there's days when I need him out there to get more property back for this program. So, if there's something really strange or unusual that you have as a need that is equipment, give us a call, shoot us an email, let us know what it is, and we can put in a want list or a want request. In other words, you want a specific model freezer, refrigerator, and it's a commercial size and it's a Hobart, and you need it. So we can actually submit a request for you. I will tell you that even though you can screen for this property on the internet and find it, you have to work with our office. This is the only way the GSA will, it's required by law. I'd love for you to be able to go out and do this yourself, but this is what's established by law, and there's a purpose for it because we have compliance regulations that we have to follow. Anything that you find on the internet, pick up the phone, shoot us an email, and I'll show you a little bit about that here in just a second. But know that you do have to work with our office to request this. Even though you'll have access to the website, if you try to request the property, the GSA won't recognize you and they'll kick it back. So, and that just simply means contact Illinois because that's what you need to do in order to acquire this property. Now there's a couple ways that you can get this property. The military has a website at www.dispositionservices. You don't have to write this down, it's on the newsletter. .dla.mil. In days gone by, this was an awesome website, but I can tell you right now it's a complete miserable failure and the federal government's trying to fix it. So there's not a lot of hope for you right now on this particular website. Believe me, I know it, Pete knows it. We've been trying to get registered, trying to get the equipment. What they did is change their whole inventory system, required us to go in and re-register, and we jumped through a lot of hoops only to find out that the next step into the process didn't work either. Then they would fix that. It's a huge debacle right now. So know that, keep this in mind because there'll come a time where the government will get this fixed and you'll be able to go out here and see some of this property and register for it. But until that day comes, what I want you to do is focus on the other side of the coin. And this is the GSA program. This is GSA up in the top right-hand corner, and I think this is on your newsletter too. This website is GSAXCESS.gov. This is an important website. This is the gold mine. This is what you want to do, is go to GSAXCESS.gov, because once you get enrolled in our program, we're going to give you a generic ID that allows you to go out here, log in, and then you're going to be able to search for property. And while this is hard to see, this is an actual screenshot that I took. I'll tell you, you can't really see it very well, but up in here, there says total number of items available. Now this is on GSA's website. This is the 24/7 website where you can search for property, day or night. On the day I took this, there were 41,852 items. What that means is the items are broken down by categories. So you literally have everything from agriculture, equipment, to aircraft, to auto, to boat, clothing and personal, computer equipment, software, construction equipment, fire trucks, all the way through the alphabet, lab, marine, musical instruments if you're at school, maybe that's of interest, office supplies, office equipment, photo equipment, recording equipment, even space shuttle equipment, tools, travel trailers were a big part of this program. In fact, I have 2 travel trailers down there in Springfield now. The beauty of the travel trailers is, even for a nonprofit, is that you can use this, no, not for camping and having fun with, but you could modify it and use it for, maybe your organization goes to fairs and festivals or park events. You can take that travel trailer, modify it, and then you have a cooling and heating center where you can bring in your visitors or talk to them remotely. So there's that type of equipment out there, and the beauty of it is, it's up to your imagination as to how you utilize it. The key thing is to utilize it. Don't require it and sit on it and then just to sell it off. Get it into service and utilize it for its intended purpose. But this is literally the site where you're going to find this equipment out here, and this changes weekly. Property is entered out here every week, and I've seen it as high as, in some days, 50,000 items. Now, I will tell you there's a little bit of a frustration with even the GSA, yes, the federal government. We're not too happy with them, because they don't take enough photos. They have 41,000 items, But you know, we got to make an informed business decision. You're a nonprofit organization. You have to invest the money wisely. You need to know what it is you're getting. And one of the ways to do that is to know about the equipment through this program. Photographs are immensely helpful. Federal agencies are horrible about getting us photos. On this particular day, there were only 2,500 photos. I can tell you that when we report something into the federal government, they make me have 100% photos for every single item that we would turn back in. Sometimes that's what we do. We report it back into this website because maybe it sat at my office in the warehouse for 12 months and we couldn't do anything with it. So we report it back in, give the estates another shot, and if nobody wants it, then it goes to public auction and out the door. So when you're working this program, make sure that you find your category here, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Find the category of equipment that interests you, and then the next step is, this is kind of the drill down into, and in this case I went under category of trucks and trailers and tractors. Well, in this case I picked this is an electric truck that was available through the system, and this page is going to tell you some very important information it should tell you some very important information. In this case, that's the photograph I talked about. That's kind of critical. If you're off-site and this property was located at the time, I think in Arizona, without a photo, I probably wouldn't have given this electric truck much thought. But when we screen, Pete and I know that, all right, absent a photo, let's still look and see what we got here. Well, you have what it's called, then you have a screening. We call this, when you're searching for property, in our system we call it screening. Looking, searching for the property, that's our term. So if you hear references to screening, that's what it means. It just simply means screen it, look for it, search for it, hunt for it. So at that point, we've got now, who owns this? Well, here's the federal agency. In this case, it was, I can barely read it, the Veterans Affairs Hospital had this electric truck. Maybe they used it on a facility running around. So I have a point of contact, and I have a phone number. Yes, sir?
You just have one of those vehicles?
At this time, there was one. That was the quantity.
What's the price?
One each. The original acquisition cost paid by the federal government, that's information here. In this case, it was about $12,000. That's what they paid for it. So in our realm, in our program, here's our example. We're typically about 10% of cost. So this truck had, it was a 2006. It had 30,000 miles on it. Tiger truck, looked like it might have been in pretty good condition. So, just rule of thumb, if that was $12,000, our service charge might be around $1,200 if I went and got that and brought it back to Illinois for you. Now, what's good about this program is you guys may have better transportation connections than I do. You might have somebody in the community, maybe somebody that would be willing to donate a flatbed trailer and go pick something up for your nonprofit organization. When you do that, when you arrange transportation, then Pete and I, we automatically cut that service charge in half. So all of a sudden, because you're going to organize transportation and get it to your shop, we just went down to $600 for this item. So if it's a usable piece of equipment, such as a vehicle, that's the beauty of the program. There are costs associated because that's the only way we exist to bring this to you. But know that we will work with you. If for some reason 600 didn't work and Pete had a soft heart and he said, all right, let me think, what can I do, what's the rules say? He might go down to $450. So we have that flexibility based on need, based on the condition of the equipment. We have rules we have to follow, a state plan of operations, so know that service charges are a part of our program. Where we can do something at low, minimal, absolute bottom dollar cost, we'll try to do it for you. So you get your information. Now here's the next important message to you. Once you see this, you have an email address. I implore you to go and try to contact the organization so that you can identify more information about this particular piece of equipment. Maybe it's you need to know, did it run, did it start? There's an email address and there's a phone number. Call them and ask them. Call them, learn as much as you can about this, and make sure that it's something that you're interested in. And then call us and say, hey, Pete, Kurt, guess what? I saw this vehicle out there, and here's the item control number. It's the very top of the screen. That's the only thing Pete and I need from you. You can copy, cut, and paste that number right there into an email. And email Pete and I, and that's all we need. We can go in and find this. We'll talk to you about it on the phone. We'll negotiate the price associated with it based on need, based on condition. And from there, we'll either retrieve it, or if you decide you want to retrieve it, that's your option as well. So that's what we do, and then our final step is to put in a request. And again, keep in mind that even though there's millions and tens of millions of dollars worth of property every single day, remember that you're competing with all 50 states and U.S. territories in this program. So GSA says in its fair and equitable distribution policy, Illinois, if you have gotten 5 trucks in the last 2 weeks, and the state of Texas, or maybe Colorado, has flooding problems right now, and a lot of vehicles were destroyed, we're going to go with Colorado because you've had a fair share of them recently. So we can be told no on equipment, and understand that that's part of the process. It is up to GSA, they make the final determination, but I will tell you that in case of greatest need, demonstrative need, if you took the time, and maybe it wasn't just about a $12,000 vehicle, maybe it was a $500,000 piece of equipment important to you. If you take the time to write me a letter and say, here's why I need this priority of this equipment, because I serve the neediest in our community, the poorest families, in the state. I need it because this is a critical health and human service reason. Whatever the reason is, your justification can be filed with my office. I can shoot that to GSA, and I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, if this piece wasn't going for an emergency, literally, like Colorado flood crisis that's going on right now, we would win. They would say, you demonstrated a need, your donee took the time to write a letter saying how badly they need this, we'll honor the request. And probably 9 times out of 10, Pete, we win, don't we?
We do,
Get that
we do, yeah.
So it can be done, but know that you're competing with all probably 67,000 organizations across the nation for this type of property. But I'm here to tell you, if not there today, it'll be there tomorrow or next week. There's always plenty of property moving through this system every single week. So, down at the bottom of the page, this was just sort of a green initiative that GSA did. Carbon equivalency calculator. What it does is just say reutilizing this particular piece of federal surplus property rather than buying new is saving the carbon equivalent of 217 days of household energy consumption, or saving 827 gallons of gasoline. I mean, it's a great green initiative because literally reuse is recycling. So we're reutilizing this property, putting it back into service. I've tried to convince GSA to tell me, in the last 2 years, federal surplus has acquired probably over $40 million worth of property that we've pushed back to our communities. I would love to know what the green savings is for the state of Illinois, but right now GSA can't tell me that. But what a great promotional piece about greening that we would be able to say in terms of what we did here in Illinois for green initiatives. This is the past 5 years worth of numbers. What this snapshot is telling you is that over the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen GSA push back into this program, just this program across the nation. This equivalent $1 million, 32 back in 9, FY13. Now, I'll tell you that this number this year, this past year, we're down $100 million in property to this program. Part of that, remember earlier I said the federal government website, the military one, was a debacle? This is why. What's happening is the Fed system isn't pushing over property, and that's normally how it runs, because once police and firefighters on the DoD side it and they bypass it, it goes to this GSA program. That interface is not working. It hasn't been working for a year, and this drop in the program is a direct correlation to losses. So our states across the nation lost $100 million worth of property because DoD can't get their system together and help us get more property back into service across the nation. So these figures represent, of course, police, fire, schools, nonprofit organizations such as yourselves, museums, airport, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, everybody across the country. So that's a huge loss to us. Now, one of the things that we do to offset this is we're out there in Illinois screening this property physically. So we have tractor trailers that literally drive across the country to the military bases, and we find this property for you and we bring it back to Illinois. That's the whole purpose of the federal warehouse down in Springfield, and that's why I encourage you, if you have the time, come down and visit us down there, because you'll get a great spectrum of property that you may not have thought about that might be useful to you through this program. Just some sample items that have been donated. Bulldozers, there's a power washer set, there's a huge truck, crane, just different types of equipment that moves, and a lot of it, yeah, it is machine type property that moves, this program. But I know your needs are going to be a little bit different than, local governments and those types of organizations. So, but as you saw from that earlier screenshot, the various categories. I mean, we're talking about clothing. Yes, there is food that comes through this program. A lot of time that food, yeah, I could say they're MREs, meals ready to eat, eaten by our military. Still, I think the expiration within that time frame. Don't want to get anything expired. But, it's literally that type of property. So what you need, the food service equipment, maybe vehicles, maybe different types of office equipment, office furniture, computers, all of that type of property is available through this program. And the good news is you've got a resource from Des Plaines, Pete Stockhew, but you can call me, you can ask me, hey, what's down in the warehouse? Hopefully within the next 6 months, we're going to deploy an inventory system so that instead of that newsletter, you'll be able to see what's on our warehouse floor and have a picture and a description of the item. And I can tell you I have literally everything from machine shop equipment to office furniture to tools to sleeping bags and backpacks and literally vehicles. We have outdoor equipment, backhoes and bulldozers. So, that stuff's down there in Springfield. But you'll see more of it on the internet. And anytime that what we try to do, and I'll make this offer to you guys, if we, as a screening, if my guys are out in out-of-state screening and there's something that you have acquired, maybe through us, and we're at that military base that you requested it from, if I can throw it on the back of the truck, I'll do that for you and get it back to Illinois. So I make that option available to a lot of our donees, and in some cases it's worked out really well. We brought back a number of things for a lot of local governments in the program, I can tell you that. Generators and light sets and things like that that they had a need for. Yes?
I guess questions now. Two things. I was in the Army, and the other definition of MREs was meals refused by everybody.
I like that one.
But the other thing is, I represent a museum, so you gentlemen know if you have display cabinets,
We see those.
flat file folder, filing systems.
Yeah, file cabinets. Absolutely.
But the flat ones for maps or things like that.
I actually, more so often on the state surplus side, that we're going to talk about next. But yeah, map cabinets, absolutely.
And the last thing is, I'm not registered yet. What's the turnaround time once I get registered?
Usually 7 process.
After an application.
Yes, absolutely. The application process is the very first step, and there's no charge to do the application, obviously. So if you file that with us, your application, it'll be good for a year, and then we'll just renew it. And usually you just provide the same supporting documentation again, and maybe if it's a licensing update or something like that, then we look for that. So, but yeah, usually 7 to 10 business days on our apps.
And that's the application is available on.
Actually, no, because that's something that we're migrating to. But at the moment, the application is out there on the table, and then you got the application. I can send it to you in a Word file if that's helpful. If you want to use computer. Okay. Make sure shoot me an email from my business card. Let me know you're looking for the Word version of it. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, he sent the vehicle.
Question. I know you went through a lot of examples of 501c3s that qualify. Are there 501c3s that don't qualify?
Yes, I'll tell you one. One organization that the federal government has yet not recognized is service animals. I actually get approached by, I get approached by organizations, especially maybe somebody, and most recently we have an organization that's a nonprofit. They are assisting veterans with service animals for, seeing eye dogs. Oh yeah. I had enrolled, and this is part of the issues that I deal with on my side of the fence when I talk about regulations. I had enrolled the local APC chapter down there in the Springfield area, Animal Protective League, APL, sorry. And they ran the program for about a year, and they got dog cages and animal cages in the program. They were thrilled to death. GSA came in during their compliance review that they do on my operation to see if we're following the regs and doing the right thing. They came in and said, no, you cannot have them in the program. It's not allowable by current regulations. They're not recognized. So I had to kick them out. Go.
So it's even better for service.
Oh yeah.
So it's about service to people.
Yep. And that's their whole mission about that. They haven't evolved to that extent yet, but I think at some point, much like the veterans, well, if there's enough veterans that are needing service animals, I think somehow the federal government's going to say, yeah, we need to really get those organizations in. So, good question. Sure. Usually on the documentation side of the world, we look for some type of financial to know, because it tells us who you are and that you're capable of, number one, with managing this federal property that's being given to you. So we look for that as supporting. But it could be, you may have an annual report. It could be, yeah, you could submit bank statements, but usually some type of evidence related to your finances. Maybe a P&L statement or some type of accounting report. That's sufficient documentation. Yes, we actually invoice you for the item, so whether you get it down there and we write you an invoice from the warehouse, or we'll email you the invoice, that's very possible. So we invoice it, you pay us 30, 45 days later, and everything's great.
So my nonprofit organization is registered in our headquarters in New York.
Okay.
You're an organization.
Okay.
So obviously we qualify.
Yes.
But like who would, having a physical.
You may. Yes, as long as the property you would acquire is for the benefit of the citizens here in Illinois, you can have that parent company out there, and it's not really an issue. What you can't do is acquire property for the purpose of using it in Missouri. So if that were the case, you want to register as a state of Missouri. Anybody else on federal side of the world? Well, the good news, state's pretty brief, so, I know you all got better things to do than listen to me on one.
That was
5 minutes?
Yeah, it's like the south central.
State surplus property, basically the same type of equipment, vehicles, property that's reached its useful life to the state of Illinois. We have also a state surplus warehouse on the same complex as the federal surplus property warehouse. So you got one-stop shopping. If you come in and enroll with both programs, you can see all the same type of equipment that comes out of the state of Illinois. So, and by that I mean all state agencies, boards, commissions, universities participate. We are the disposal authority for the state of Illinois.
Is that a separate application?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's actually a much simpler application, believe it or not. It's a one-page application, and I believe we've got copies out there as well. If we don't, I'll certainly email you one. Local governments, who's eligible, same, we're kind of the same spiel here. Nonprofit organizations are eligible. Yes, 501Cs are eligible for this program as well. And here again, visiting the warehouse is always encouraged. One of the things that we have online right now, if you go to the CMS website, cms.illinois.gov, and look for buying from the state, there's a link to the state surplus program, and on that page you'll actually see a virtual warehouse where we have like maybe some photos, but then we also have descriptions of equipment that's literally out there on the floor. It's real time. It tells you what's out on the floor. At the moment, I don't have the vehicles in that system, but we're hoping to push it that way relatively soon. State surplus property follows comparable guidelines as the feds. Anything less than 10,000 shall be priced to sales of units of local governments or nonprofit at a minimum. This is literally part of the law and the rule, and it's established for us. So, where the federal side can be anywhere from 10% up to 50% based on, we actually by law here in Illinois and rule have 10% and 15%. That rule is this: 15% if it's less than 5 years old in terms of newer condition, and then it'll be 10% of original acquisition value paid by the state if it's older than 5 years. So there again, same kind of benchmarks for you. Barometers are 10 to 15% of original cost. We do require that the equipment be paid for on the state side at the time of the sale, but there are things that we can do to work with you if you need us to, like maybe your board has to approve your payments or something like that. So we'll work with you on the payment and when it has to be submitted. But we can take Visa and MasterCard if it's in the name of the corporation, your nonprofit corporation. State of Illinois no longer conducts on-site sales. Everything that we do, once our local governments and nonprofits have their shot at the property in our system, at that point, if those sales do not occur, then we move this to public sale. We used to have sales in Springfield on-site for vehicles, warehouse full of equipment like that. We no longer do that. About 12 years ago, we started doing auctions online, and the state of Illinois 10 years ago created its own online auction system called iBid. And this is where you can bid as just a member of the general public, not necessarily representing your nonprofit organization. But you can bid on all types of surplus property at ibid.illinois.gov. We've got more than 20,000 registered bidders in the system, and we've sold more than $9 million in sales. That's money that comes back from taxpayer sales back into the state system, so back to GRF. And I can tell you, the state surplus program has generated sufficient revenues in the past couple of years to move back approximately $3.5 million back to GRF. So that's probably good news for the House and Senate members here today. They like to hear that money. We're doing good, making good sales, get good money. But that's what we're supposed to do: maximize the sales and the return on investment. That, you know, this was paid by the Illinois taxpayer, so we put this back, we sell it, and we get the most money we can by using this method. And it's the state's own brand. That is literally the brevity of the state surplus property program. It's about a 38,000 square foot warehouse. The only way to see state surplus is through the online, that virtual warehouse I told you about. Or if there's a particular item that you're looking for, we can put it, you know, we can identify it in our, wait for it to come in at state, so we can create kind of our own internal want list for the state program as well. But I would encourage you to some point, you know, when you're traveling south, stop by Springfield, take a look at the warehouse, because both of them are right there together. Get into both programs, do the applications. It doesn't cost you anything, but the value to you is going to be when you need that particular piece of equipment. We're going to be there to serve you with these two programs and help you serve those neediest in your organizations. So, again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank Representative and Senator for their efforts to organize this on behalf of State of Illinois and make this available to you today. So, again, thank you both for your...
popular person in the room.
Your best friend.
I've dealt with him directly when I worked at a different representative's office, and he is fabulous. So thank you so much. It was very, very informative. And I just want to double check that this is what they need. This is the application form.
There's a
nonprofit.
Yep. It's a 3-page.
And then you fill this one out.
Yep.
Okay, and then this is the letter.
This is the cover letter. And you know you got the right one. Yes. If it says general nonprofit, that's the majority of you. I know the museum has their own. And there's other, like firefighters and so forth.
And you can always, I assume, email you directly or our offices, and we can always help coordinate.
Yep.
So
and if you have anyone, you know, that you may know, like small businesses or Boy Scouts or, you know, museums, libraries, like we talked about, let them know about this program, because it can save them a lot of money.
It was fabulous. Thank you very much.
You might be used to getting another internship program. So I'm going to turn everything over to Francine. She'll talk to you about what sorts of things you need to do to apply to get some of these graduate students. So Francine, thank you very much. Michael, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning, everyone. My name is Francine Reed, and this is Michael Joyce. We're from the Adler School of Professional Psychology. And we are in the recruiting stages now for the 2014 Community Service Practicum. Our first year grad students come in and they do a 200-hour non-clinical practicum. They work on various projects such as grant writing, fundraising, program development, and community outreach services. They typically do 8 to 10 hours a week at a particular organization with 1 hour supervision from the site supervisor or site mentor. And we brought along some information folders with the application, and although it says that the submissions is September, yes, that'd be great. September 29th, we have extended that into October the 6th, I believe. So we will pass out this information, and some of you all, we have a couple of partners here listed, and I'm not sure if Central Romero is here, but yes, we had a partnership with you all back in 2011 and 2010. So my business card is on the inside. Although we are given the paper form, we would appreciate if you all could send this back electronically, or you can contact me on via email, and I can send the electronic version to you all. The deadline for submission? Well, here it has on the 29th, which is this coming Sunday, but we are extending the deadline to October the 6th. To give you more time to submit your application. We're trying to do something different this year, where we're sending out a team of 2 to 3 students to work on various projects. We have marriage and family, art therapy, sports and health, the GERO program. We have many different masters and sighting programs. that our interns are in now, and we could send them out to you all if you'd like to see CVs. We could also arrange that. But we have pretty great students that would love to have an opportunity to come out and work with you all on internship. So during the community service practicum, we do ask the site supervisors to give like an evaluation of our student, and we actually will walk you all through the process. It's on the APT, which is the online database system, and we ask you all for this information just to keep track of the status and to monitor the student's progress. We want to make sure that it's a great fit for you as far as the intern, and that they're getting a meaningful experience from the community service practicum, and that they're coming to work on time, completing assignments, and getting the hours that are required. The first half will be completed the end of March, so that will be midterm. They are supposed to have about 100 hours at that point, and then till the end, June 26th will be the deadline for the CSP. They will have to have another 100 hours, which will result in 200 full community service practicum hours. At the end of the internship, the students, we all have a community service symposium that we host at Adler School, and we also invite all of the partners to come out, and then the students present things on topics that they learned from their experience with your organizations. This year we had a really wonderful symposium. Students no longer were just stuck with a poster presentation. They were able to do exhibitions, workshops, panel discussions. We invite the partners to participate as well. We have student, staff, and faculties attend, and it was a wonderful event. So does anyone have any questions? I don't want to take too much of your time, but does anyone have any questions regarding internship or CSP?
Well, I'm kind of curious, when you bring these people in and they're going to do 200 hours, I mean, how do they typically do their hours? Are they?
Well, they come in 8 to 10 hours a week. Okay. So if you have a need for an intern, say Mondays, Wednesday, and Friday, they could work 4 or 5 hours. And we also have to take into consideration that these are students who are in class, so we try to work around their classroom schedule and your availability. Yes?
Do they then work on weekends if they cannot make a weekday, or we couldn't?
Yes, absolutely. We do have some that work on Saturdays and Sundays as well.
What are the, in terms of the site supervisors, are you requiring a master's level person? Or what are they?
Well, not necessarily. We do ask that the site mentor spends at least 1 hour of supervision with the interns, just to make sure. Each week? Yes, each week. So they'll be there 8 to 10 hours, and if you all could just do like maybe at the end of the week, 1 hour. It doesn't have to be all in one day. It could be 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. So just so that they can know that you're there for them and what they're doing on their particular project is in alignment with your needs as well.
There are no educational requirements to be a supervisor?
No. And when you get to the clinical side, which is where the students will go after they finish the CSP, then that's where they require master's level degrees for counseling.
The person on site.
Right. Yes.
So, if I understand correctly, they have different things that they need to accomplish during this time. It could be things like fundraising or events or...
Yes, we have various various things that the interns do, such as program development, grant writing, fundraising, community outreach, so things of that nature. We try to make sure that our interns are not just doing administrative work or just filing papers. We're trying to have a meaningful impact for the community service practicum, so that they can relate this to social justice.
So it's around, so social justice is the core of what everything's supposed to be?
Yes. Okay. We're trying to make sure that they're socially responsible practitioners. Yes.
Besides what you already mentioned, we also have need of people who might want to do oral histories of the people in our area. That would be socially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
It would be like a community outreach type project.
Yes.
Do people have ideas of the sorts of things they might want the interns for, and you can maybe give them some kind of an idea, and they can let you know whether or not it would qualify? Anybody here?
I can probably give experience from Central Maryland. One of the interns assisted in grant writing.
Okay.
So did some donor research foundations that would give to one of the programs that we operate.
Okay, sure.
To add on to what Francine was saying earlier, we're pushing the teamwork aspect, as she mentioned. So you could have 2 interns, so that would be 20 hours a week. I know some of the sites I've talked to, that's very valuable to them. It's almost another employee.
So when we submit the application form, when will we be able to know the interns will be available? For example, it will be starting from January. We submit in October, the first week of October.
Yes.
And you will notify our agency, right?
Yes. Well, we are conducting the placements in October, mid-October. The students will get together in their teams and submit a cover letter, and we'll see the various projects that you all submit, make sure that it's a great fit. We place the students and we'll contact you in November to let you know of the interns who will be working with your organization. November and December will be the times that the students could come in to do any type of HR requirement screening, such as drug testing, fingerprinting, any type of medical screening that they need to do. They can take care of that November, December, so that they can start the internship January 6th on time. Yes.
Is the agency or organization that is interested in an intern, do they have some sort of accountability to the intern as far as paperwork or report to the school?
Yes, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. We have an evaluation process that we have our site mentors do on the APT, which is the Adler Practicum tool. It's an online database system. The interns will go in and keep track of all of their hours. They will put, say, January 6, 2014, first day at site, they'll start working on grant writing and fundraising project. Then you as a site mentor will go in and sign off to verify that they actually did the work for that particular day. And then they'll keep on filling out the information. Midpoint, which would be the end of March, we ask the site mentor to conduct a site evaluation. I'm sorry, not a student evaluation. So this would be just to monitor their progress and make sure that they're on task and that they're doing the things that you've asked them to do for the various projects. We monitor this information. If there's any type of comportment issues, we ask that you contact us right away. We really don't have issues like that because this is a graduate school, so students pretty much understand what's expected of them. After that, there's a final evaluation that will be due at the end on June 26th, and we ask the site supervisors to complete that as well. And this also plays a part in them receiving their credit or no credit for the community service practicum.
Thank you. Can you give us some ideas on some of the projects that students have done in the past?
Sure. Well, during our symposium, we had students who worked with a homeless shelter. They had a magnificent project. Who would have ever known that the bags here, such as this bag here, like the plastic bags, could be really useful. These students learned how to create by using recycled bags. They made sleeping bags, and the actual bags served as insulation for the homeless. And it was such an amazing project. They brought it on campus with a site supervisor, and we all participated and made some sleeping bags, and I thought that was wonderful. We also had students who helped grant writing projects, brought lots of funds to organizations who really needed the money. We also, this year, we're doing a different thing where we have one organization that could pair up with a different organization. If you don't have the capacity to host the interns, you may want to pair up with another org, and we could have the intern work maybe a few hours here and then more hours with the partner that you have. We also had students do food deserts. There's spots in Chicago where there's no grocery stores within 20, 30 miles away or so. And so they started a food desert where they found an empty lot, started growing vegetables, and open it up for the community to come in and have healthy vegetables and fruits where they originally didn't have that access to that. A lot of people in certain communities, they don't have vehicles or may not be able to catch transportation to get to stores to get these things. So I thought the food desert was a wonderful, wonderful thing that a student worked on last year as well. Program evaluation, community outreach week. We have students that worked on, there was I'm not sure, it's like a medical truck that would drive around the city and offer medical assistance to folks homeless. Had students participate in that as well. We've had a huge amount of different projects that students have worked on since the community service practicum started. Yes.
How many students do you have available?
We had this year 263 students.
Wow.
And we typically have between 250 and 300 a year. So.
Well, it sounds very interesting. I mean, I've had an intern before. The last one was from University of Phoenix. But I was just thinking about maybe talk about two agencies working together, perhaps Central Maryland. I represent Goodness Partners. One of the areas where we're not as culturally competent as we would like to be, or I'm not personally, is the ability to speak Spanish. I can read a little, but my Spanish speaking is not very good. But we have a nice population of folks who are Latino, who are Spanish is their first language. But we have a lot of documents that are only in English, and I don't agree with that. We're not at a place where we can physically do it ourselves. But maybe there may be some way we can work with Central Maryland interns to be able to convert some of those documents, not only from English to Spanish, but also my goal would be to make sure it's digital, so it's online, it's more accessible to more people. So does that sound like something that could possibly work with some of the interns and then with possibly,
yes,
I don't think I have the Goodness Partners cards with me, but I have one of mine and they're kind of right. I'll give you this one.
Absolutely, that does sound like a good project. We just had a group of students actually who created a website to help folks with HIV to be aware of the various services that are right there in their area that they may not know of. It was a wonderful, wonderful project. They started this from the ground up, built up the website, put all these different services, and made a link where you could put in your zip code and it will just pop up all the different services that's within a mile of you. So I thought that was a wonderful project to have.
Yes. My name is Connie Chan. I work for Transmutual Trade Association. Our social service department needs volunteers or interns to do the data entry. It's okay do you consider this socially justice type of work, or just a simple data entry work?
Yes, that would be fine, but we have to just make sure, what we're trying to stay away from, because we had students complain in the past, they're just sitting there answering the phone, or they're sitting there just filing paper, and they're trying to figure out, well, how does this make me a socially responsible graduate of Adler School? So if you can connect the data entry into a purpose, which I'm sure you can, that would be wonderful. We actually here with the application, we do have on the site organization detail page, we have on that third page, there's a list of competencies where we just make sure, like self-awareness, awareness of social identity and their cultural influence of how they intersect. So then you would describe how that particular project would fit that criteria, and then that would make everything legit. So like I said, we have no problem with the data entry, we just don't want to have students just, filing all day or playing reception all day. Yes?
I was going to say, to your point, you can also help them see that without the reporting, it's very difficult to receive funding if you're trying to do funding, or you're trying to make sure that as an organization, when you're put on these different, when you search for Better Business Bureau things that you see that you're a reputable company, being able to document what you're doing and how you're doing it helps other people to determine your efficacy in the organization and in the community. So that's a very important part of the documentation piece, that sometimes it's not the pretty part, but it helps the students. You have to, the two go hand in hand. Without that, it's just very more difficult to compete for dollars and for volunteers even for that matter. If that helps you some.
Yes, thank you. And actually here we have a list of a few projects, sample project ideas. Develop educational, health-related, or psychosocial programs tailored specifically to the needs of a given population. And along the lines of what you were saying with the data entry, collect information to assist with evaluation of activities, characteristics, outcomes of programs to make judgment about programs' effectiveness and to inform decisions about future programming. So by the intern doing the data entry, I can see that totally falling in that category, as you were saying. Thank you.
This is online as well.
Yes, it is. And if you like, I could forward that to you. If you have a business card, I could forward the electronic. And we would really appreciate if we could have it electronically. Thank you very much.
Did you have a question?
Yes. Francine, I'm looking at your community partners. It's quite a big list you have there. And I was listening to some of the examples like grant writing and fundraising, and also looking at the sample projects. I think earlier you had mentioned something about sports. Is there something specific that you guys have done that you could talk about?
Well, right now we do have a sports and health program, and the faculty of that program and I are working on organizations such as Girls in the Game, Girls on the Run, where we're going to send a team of 2 to 3 sports and health master's level students out to work on program development, such as doing events with children and the after school program that they may have. The Gary Comer Youth Center is another one of our sites that we send interns out, and they could also help set up things. I believe there is also, this one it gets a little physical because it entails running track, and some of our interns would also be doing that. So they're very hands-on. They get into the nitty-gritty, but we do have various, we have the Gero program where we have students that were formerly at one of our partners, White Crane. They do the sensory testing for the elder. Folks who may be impaired with not being able to see, they conduct all these different experiences, but it still falls under non-clinical.
And just personally, I can say I worked for an organization and curriculum development was one of the things that the students helped with.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was very helpful.
Any other questions?
Development and after school program or something?
Yeah, it was for athletic programs. An athletic program is being run in the schools and the parks. Okay, everybody? Any other questions? Thank you very much, Francine.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I think we need 2 more packets too. I think we're short a couple of packets. 3 packets.
Who needs a packet? I think I have one more left, but if you give me your business card, I could email it.
I think I got it. I got her.
Oh, you
got it? Okay.
We need one.
And I got your own business card. Did you need a packet?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I think there's one other. Is there one more?
Well, I said Monday morning, so that's functional. Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, can I send it to you?
Okay.
Well, my church is
Oh, good. That's what I like to hear. Andy, a pleasure. You guys do such great work, so I hope this was helpful.
Very helpful.
Yeah. I got some things to say.
We've had a lot of success. We come here to Little Park. This is our park communication. It's gotten very good. They went at the local level, the state level, and we actually got a chance to send the out to New Jersey for the North American Championships. where they got a bronze medal and they were in the highest division for softball. It has just been very, very helpful to have programs like that. Where
that sounds great.
we're getting a lot more young people who are aging out of DCFS programs that have backgrounds where they need housing and also a lot of active activities. We also do, as she mentioned, sensory programs because we do serve a wide range of people adults who might not be SBA special Olympics.
That would be like an internal partnership.
Especially as it gets older. Yeah, it's very helpful.
Okay, a pleasure.
Pleasure meeting you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Your email over there, I usually want to have me get you. Yes, very good, thank you. And, here, I know I gave you the card. And I'll have two. So when I go to a large bag. No, she didn't have one.
You said you would like some coffee as well?
We have a package, but I'm okay. Sure, I am. But I should have thought. No. I just brought my.
Lightweight person.
It always helps.
Yes.
Would you please email me?
It's very nice to have a telephone again. I really appreciate you taking the time to say, listen to our.
Thank you.
Thank you, so great. Yeah, good to see you again.
Thank you again.
Oh, yes.
You're welcome.
To say what?
I hope it's good information.
Yes.
Okay. Because the person that did it last year isn't there anymore, so.
You could,
Tell them.
We haven't had time to talk to our membership about it, so I'll put it out there, because they have to fill that out.
Fill it out and get it out and at least get it
And
on
I
the
will
website.
update you.
Is she getting you the elevator?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry it was such a long hectic.
That's okay.
Joseph Mark.
Of course, and I got you on the information from, yeah.
That's a long, I mean, so you get to meet every day?
I talk to you every time.
Oh.
So I work
Oh, you
full
live
time
up
here
there?
at the and
Oh.
I serve on the south side. And
Yes, yeah, we are. Well, did I have to switch some time here?
And we'd like to just give you a bag too.
The elevator's here too.
Yeah, we go all the way in Center about a mile or two, and then we go way west to Jog around.
No, let's just toss it. Knucklehead. Me and knucklehead.
Do I take the coffee that's left? Oh, I wouldn't either. Okay, that was really wonderful. It went fabulously.
She's very happy.
Now, are we taking math stuff or is he coming back?
Yes, we're taking math stuff.
Okay. First, I've got several urgent emails, so I may have to run out of here.
Okay, no problem.
Are you okay with
Classes,
his,
don't worry.
are you okay with his stuff? Oh, you have to do mine, you're so sweet.
You like to roll yours up, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, it can be anyway, I can fold it. Here. I'm just looking at the proof for my fill-up data.
Yeah?
Yeah, it looks like that they made it Heather, the red part of that is more maroon, it looks like they made it reddish, and I don't know if I like that, so I got
Good. Show me who you sent it to.
I'll show you, yeah, I went for fast signs because they seemed a little bit cheaper, and that's what, Mr. Sanger's done. You want yours rolled or folded? Folded. So, yeah, how did he get everything here? Did he walk or?
Who, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought his stuff.
Oh, you brought stuff?
Yeah.
He was riding his bike.
Yeah.
Well, that one should not have been better, I don't think.
I think it went wonderfully too. Thank
I
you.
like these kinds of events where they do all the work.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what we did, we wrote the letter, we got out the fly, we did